Everyone, and welcome to the Linden Oaks Parent Series. I'm Kelly Fisher with our Linden Oaks marketing team, and today's presentation is Helpless at Homework, a Parent's Guide to Getting It Done. Tonight's speaker is Bob Watson, and if you have any questions throughout tonight's presentation, feel free to send them in the chat box, and Bob will answer them at the end of the presentation. You are also welcome to email any questions to lindenoaksmarketing@eehealth.org, and we will respond to it that way. There will be a short 5-minute poll at the end of the presentation, so please complete that. It just is very valuable feedback for us to have on the presentation. And then if you are interested in attending any upcoming webinar series, we have one every month. So our next one is February 21st, Scrolling Minds, Navigating the Impact of Social Media on Teen Mental Health. Linden Oaks treats patients 8 and up through a variety of mental health concerns, including depression, anxiety, school refusal, autism spectrum 1, addiction, substance use, eating disorder, PTSD, trauma, and other mental health concerns. We are a full continuum of care, including outpatient therapy, medication management, and inpatient hospital-based programs. We have locations at our Naperville for inpatient and outpatient. We also have locations in Plainfield, St. Charles, Mokena, Hinsdale, and Woodridge for eating disorder. We are also merged with the North Shore, we are now part of a 9-hospital system. So we do have expansion in the northern suburbs as well. We're in network with most major insurance. And here's a full list of our insurance panel, and we also accept Medicaid for all kids for anyone under age 21. If you or someone you know is feeling anxious and depressed, we do have a QR code and a website here, which will be emailed out to you, and this will give you an assessment. It's a quick quiz to gauge your anxiety, depression, and addiction through a 5-minute quiz. And if you're interested, there's the QR code. You can visit eehealth.org/healthaware at the website to take the quiz. And then that allows me to introduce Bob. So I will let you take over, Bob Watson, to present tonight.
All right, thank you, Kelly. So I'm here to present Helpless at Homework, a Parent's Guide to Getting It Done. Like she said, my name is Bob. That's what I look like. I've been the supervisor of the teacher program here at Linden Oaks for about 10 years or so now, they tell me. I've been working here for about 13, but I also have experience as a high school math teacher in a variety of districts and kind of all over it. So I did an urban school, I did a suburban school, I did a school way out in the middle of nowhere. And I've also worked as like an ACT prep coach, a private tutor, and everything else. So if it comes to education, I think I've kind of probably done it for the most part. I do have a master's degree from National Louis University. And yeah, I'm a parent myself. I have a 10-year-old daughter at home. I'm also a former foster parent. So I had a 14-year-old daughter come and live with me for almost a year. And so I have a lot of parenting experience too, which I'm hoping to kind of bring into this as well. As far as this presentation goes, I have 3 objectives. So one is I want to help you guys learn some skills that are hopefully going to help you develop some of the executive functioning skills in your kids. I think that's a really important part of kind of getting homework done and helping them sort of take a leadership role in doing their own homework, which is certainly a process. I'm also going to talk a little bit about helping to balance their schedule and then kind of looking at how parents can overhelp or they can underhelp. And then I think that one of the kind of keys to my philosophy on helping with homework is routine. So we're going to look at how to create a sustainable routine to help your kid be successful in school. And why is this important? Why are we offering this as a hospital? Um, I think homework issues are a much bigger uh, problem than they might seem at first. There was a study reported in The Guardian, which is a UK-based newspaper, that said that most kids in the UK spend less time outdoors every day than a typical prison inmate. Over 74% of the people that they interviewed were having less than 1 hour of outdoor time every day. And a large portion of that was due to the fact that there are, even with very young kids, there's a variety of, homework activities that they were having to do um, at home after school, even at a very young age. There's also homework issues can also be a signal of mental distress. Pew Research did a study in 2019 who said that 70% of kids 13 to 17 years old who they believe that anxiety and depression was a major problem among their peers. And those kids who were cited in that survey reported that 88% of them reported that they felt a lot or some pressure to maintain good grades every day. They're also a source of stress among all family members. Even if you have one or two kids who are really great at doing homework, that one kid who's struggling can promote stress among everybody. There's a educational consulting company called Narbus who did a report. They said 63% of all families reported that grades and homework can be a source of household stress and frustration. And I think that a lot of our older students who still have trouble with homework and getting it done and organizing it and everything else, that can be a signal that their child is maybe not ready to transition into more adult responsibilities. Um, I can't necessarily speak to any numbers on this, but I believe that we've noticed an increase in our census in the hospital among young people who are ages 18 to 25. So much so that in St. Charles recently, at our St. Charles location, they opened a young adult program that's specifically for people who have graduated high school that are having trouble moving on to the next phase in their life. And I think that homework may not be the cause of that, but it certainly is something that can point to the fact that something like this may be happening. The other reason I wanted to do this presentation is because I think there's a big disparity between what parents see and what is actually existing in our community. Um, Between October 2nd and 9th of last year, 2013, Gallup Industries did a poll of about 2,000 kids. I think they surveyed 1,917 students and their parents in the K-12 public school area. This is the same company that does all of the political reporting. They have an education division as well. And they said that they asked the question, is your child above or below grade level standards in reading or math? And about 90% of parents said, my kid is above grade level for reading or math. But when we look at state achievement testing, this is the Illinois graph right here, it's roughly a quarter of people are actually proficient or above grade level, and that more than a third of of students are below grade level as far as their testing goes. And they looked at what the disparity could be between what parents believe where they're above grade level and what results are showing is below. And they noted that 80% of parents were saying that their child was getting a B or higher in those two important classes, whatever they want to call reading, whether they call it English or language arts or reading or math. And yet, even still, 40% of college bound high school seniors are considered prepared for college by ACT. And that's the same company that does the ACT test, of course. So grades and homework, there's this disparity in belief about, what's actually happening in classes and among parents as well, as far as what's possible and what's actually happening in schools. So we can talk a little bit to that as well. Um, I believe that homework is a different point than a grade. Um, if we kind of take those two studies that Gallup did and we say, all right, they're showing this disparity of what's happening between grades and report cards. Maybe homework can help tell a story a little bit better. And working with all of these kids that we work with in the hospital every day, I think that homework is also going to help improve their grades really steadily because we're seeing that, as time goes on, homework is more and more becoming exactly what they need to know for the test. We see homework we work with about 400 different school districts every year in Illinois and beyond Illinois. More often, we're finding that the homework that is assigned is directly correlated to what they need to know for a test. Even from when I first started working here, it used to be pretty good. Now there's like a one-to-one correlation on most tests as far as what they need to know. I also think that with the pandemic and e-learning, doing homework and involving parents in the process of doing homework is going to be pretty easy in most classes. The pandemic did a lot of harm, certainly, but one of the things that it did do is it taught teachers that they need to maintain an online portal for homework and grades and things like that. And that's making it much easier for parents, teachers, and tutors and kids to have access to information they need in order to do homework all the time. And I think that homework can also be a signal of how things are going overall with your children. I had our inpatient teacher at Linden Oaks here take a look at all of our new admissions as they were rolling into our inpatient program over the month of December. Because we've always said that when we see our kids come in, most of them are actually really good students right up until a point, and then they suddenly stop doing homework and stop having, good grades in their classes for about a couple days, and then they end up coming to our inpatient program. So we looked at it and we found that 80% of our new admissions into the Linden Oaks inpatient program were behind in homework by exactly 4 to 8 days. So somewhere in that time frame of about a week before some major crisis situation that's happening in these kids' lives, homework was a signal that, when it stopped, it just stopped right there. And so it can be, a signal of their mental health or of how things are going in their life overall. And it gives parents an opportunity to really, um, have the important conversations with their kids, whether they're about homework or just about life. My plan is called the Healthy In Between. And this is a 5-point plan. And my goal is that I want to help parents become a little bit more aware of what's happening in your child's academics. And I want to help you parent a little bit more proactively by teaching your kids the skills that they need in order to be successful at school. And I think the most important part of my plan is those big words right after the side that says for a very limited amount of time. One of my kind of goals with this plan is not to turn parents into a permanent forever homework helper. At some point, your child has to grow the maturity to take on that role by themselves. And as a parent, your job becomes check in now and again, maintain accountability, and that way you're not becoming the kid's private tutor. And I think that that's a really, really important piece of the puzzle that often gets overlooked when we talk about having parents help with homework. A lot of people talk about turning parents into a private tutor, and I definitely don't want that to happen. Um, if you need to hire one, that's a different thing, but your job should be a parent and not necessarily a constant attendee and tutor over the course of things. So let's get started. The first piece is we need to get parents the right access. And the right access, um, this is our action plan. When I ask parents, do you have your child's access information for their online schoolwork portal? Almost everybody says, yes, Bob, I can definitely see their grades. I'm not talking about their grades. Usually there are two separate portals. There's the grading system, which is separate from the way that your child goes on to access what homework they need to do. And most of the time, parents don't have that second piece of access where they can get in to the child's online schoolwork portal. So what I'm talking about here, it's different at every school. But the three major ones that we see all the time are Schoology, Google Classroom, and Canvas. There's plenty of others, little ones that are out there, but I think the first piece of this whole puzzle is asking your child, how do they access their homework, and getting the login and information required as parents so that you too can log into getting their homework access. Again, this is not grades. I believe that if you see grades alone, the only thing you can do is punitive parenting. You can't really help proactively. You'll see that the essay didn't get turned in. You can't necessarily help them along the way with the essay unless you have access to their online schoolwork portal. The second piece of my action plan is that once you get that access from your child, just ask them for it. I'm hoping that they will give it to you. They give it to me quite frequently. Once you get that access, I think it's an important step that's often missed where you sit down with your child in front of a computer and you have them show it to you and teach you how to use it. And I think that this does two things for you. As a parent, one, it's going to let you see how you can access it yourself. And I think the second important piece of it is it lets you see what your child knows how to do on these platforms. Some of them offer a whole lot of different functionality that teachers might be using or that your child could be using that they don't know about. These portals have kind of been around for a long time. They were around pre-pandemic, but they became the norm during the pandemic, and they still exist and they're still updated. It's still a point at almost every school district that I'm aware of where teachers are expected to update this periodically. But our kids were thrown into it. They were never given like a formal training on it. And I think that as an adult, you can look at it and see the features that they are using versus not using and use that to teach them some skills. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I think that having them teach you how to use it is an important goal. And my goal with this is I don't want you to have to do this forever, every day, all the time. The goal is that once you learn it and work with them a little bit on it and teach them the skills they need, you're not checking in so often. You're not checking in every day on it. You're checking in once in a while. For example, this is my daughter's Google Classroom page. I kind of zoomed out a little bit. And these are some of the tools that I'm talking about. You can see in the center section with those colorful bars, those are the names of each of her teachers and their classes. And if you click into those, you can see what's coming up, what's happening, what announcements are being made. And you can often find copies of the worksheets that are missing. But on the left-hand side, there's a bar where you can find a calendar. And some teachers are putting things on the calendar like spelling tests every Friday or final exams or early release days and things like that. And a lot of teachers are also putting things on their to-do list, which is on the left-hand side as well. And I would say that the to-do list itself is one of the things that I show kids all the time, and a lot of people are really shocked by the fact that it exists. But if you log into Classroom and click on that button that says to do, it will literally give you a list of every single assignment that you can click on to find all of their assignments and which ones are done, which ones are missing. And sometimes it will have grades linked on there. But again, the grades are once an assignment is graded, you missed your opportunity. We want to get to it ahead of that. And then in the box in the corner, there's also a link to their docs, their drive. Sometimes there's online textbooks or other sites that they use throughout the school. That's all in that section with boxes up there. I unfortunately don't have an example of Canvas or Schoology to show, but they're all a little similar in terms of what they offer and how you can use it. And getting access to some of those tools and training your kids in how to use them is step one. This to me is a one-time thing. Once you get access, you're good. You might have to check in occasionally, but getting access is the first point. The second point is to teach them executive functioning skills. So what is an executive functioning skill? These are skills that a lot of people have kind of automatically. You just sort of grow into having executive functioning skills. Sometimes you need to be taught these things very specifically as you grow up because some of them don't come naturally to everybody. But the executive functioning skills are things like you have on the left. paying attention in class, time management, problem solving skills, and self control, and so on and so forth. Some of these are a result of therapy for some people, or other people just need somebody to kind of help them gain skills for things like prioritization, organization, and things like that. And as a parent, this is definitely an area where you can help. Some examples of how to take the thoughts on the left and turn them into actions on the right. Managing an email account is very difficult for a lot of kids. Quite frequently, they show me their email and it's 4,052 unread messages. There's no folders, there's no prioritization, and they can sit there and get so overwhelmed by just having an email account and spend 30 minutes doing what they think is an effective, uh, homework activity, going through and deleting emails or other things like that. And in the end, they haven't gotten a single thing done for a grade. But you can teach them what folders are, both digital folders and real folders. Teach them how to use a calendar or a planner, making to-do lists and things like that. These are all skills that come naturally to some kids, are occasionally taught in schools, but aren't taught in schools often enough. And as a teacher, I can tell you that, I was given a curriculum list that had 200 days worth of activities, and I had to teach 200 days worth of content in 180 days. I didn't have time to spend on teaching kids how to use a calendar or how to use my Google Classroom site as a teacher. Ideally, as a parent, you have time to do at least a few of these things. Um, but this will help them kind of become an adult. And I think that one of the biggest things is we need to get buy-in from our kids. And I think the way that you get buy-in on teaching executive functioning skills is by the um, using the thing they want to use the most, which is their phone. Right? If you make their phone into a device that they are allowed and encouraged to use a little bit more often, maybe that helps a little bit with buy-in. So I have 6 apps here that I think are pretty essential. I'm going to go through them rather quickly because some of them are pretty self-explanatory. Um, and I think probably you already know most of these, but kids have an automatic draw to their phone. Let's use this as an advantage, right? The first thing on my list is a calendar. And I think a calendar is something that every phone has automatically. Digital calendars offer you the benefit of giving you notifications when something is coming up. And if you teach your kid to abide by those digital notifications, that's awesome. And I think that one of the things that I encourage my 14-year-old to do when she lived with me was use your calendar to block test dates, and also the night before block an hour so that you can study for that test. And it leads to setting up time very specifically in her day so that she could study for a test and then do well. And you can make this as complex or as simple as you need it to, but having that calendar where they can block time ahead of time and then also block time for the test is going to be really helpful. And I think that helps a little bit with compliance as well. My second app is Evernote, which I use. Evernote does cost money, but you can also find a lot of equivalents that are free. And the idea behind Evernote is that it's just a note-taking app. So if something comes up at the very end of class and the teacher goes, "Don't forget to hand in your report tomorrow," ideally they're able to pull out their phone and quick type a little note, or sometimes they have picture taking functions. I know Evernote can do that, where if they see a club they want to join, they can use that to take a picture really quick of the poster and then save it to Evernote so they remember where to go. I use Evernote for to-do lists, and I think it's a pretty important thing for those like last-minute reminder warnings to set off, or if they're starting to plan their day a little bit. My third one is Desmos. Desmos is a graphing calculator on your phone. Kids probably are using this in their math classes already, so they probably know about it, but they probably don't know that it has a phone app. The app is free. And I like this one because I think one of the things that you run into is a lot of excuses when you work with your kids on their homework. And Desmos eliminates one of the biggest excuses for not being able to do math, which is I don't have my graphing calculator on me. Well, there's one right there on your phone. The thing that a lot of people don't know about Desmos is that if you can click through the menus and you can find some tutorials on how to use it, but also on how to do various things in algebra and geometry, as far as like making different pictures on your calculator and things like that. So not only is it a good tool for using to actually do the work, it can also help your kid learn math homework as well. There's an app by Have a Bee is the company. It's an Android app. I do not know if it's available for iPhone, but I use this one myself. It's a customizable app that just does breathing exercises with you. And I believe that one of the problems that a lot of parents have with homework and working with their kids is that a lot of kids can get very overwhelmed by homework. And a lot of them need the opportunity to cool off a little bit before they get started. And this app is really great for that. You load it up, you push which one you want, and then you just put on your headphones and you breathe along and follow along with the instructions. Again, this is a free app. And I think that if you make this a routine, if you make this a part of their life, and if they see the benefits of using this, they can do it when they walk into class right before a test. It's easy enough to, switch on, sit there, close their eyes, and breathe for a few minutes prior to a test, maybe to help them calm down, ease some of that test taking anxiety, and do better on that test or quiz. App number 5 is a stopwatch. I use this for breaks. So we're going to start with, depends on your child, right? If you have a child who is not very attentive at all, start with a really small work period, set a stopwatch for it, set a longer break, and kind of switch back and forth between that, slowly over time, increasing the amount of time that you are working with your kid. If you want to know like kind of what the guiding principle is, most kids have an attention span that is equal to their age plus 5 minutes. So you can start above or below that depending on what you need, but short little 20-minute bursts of work is appropriate for a 15-year-old kid. Set them for a 15 or 20-minute timer, say go, this is the time we're working on stuff. I also use it for breaks because the autoplay function on YouTube and Spotify is really, really good and it keeps them sucked in for a long time. If you pick a stopwatch with a really annoying beep and then train them to behave when it comes on, that can help kind of redirect them back to their work. The final one is Khan Academy. And I like Khan Academy because parents are not the experts at everything. I am a teacher. I've been a teacher for close to 20 years now. I still don't know a thing about chemistry. And I'm dreading the day when my daughter gets into a chemistry class because I'm probably not going to help her. I could use Khan Academy to kind of help along with that. Khan Academy is, again, I believe it's free. It's free for teachers. But you can find anything you need as far as like how to learn a specific topic. But more importantly, they can figure out how to learn things by doing a search on whatever topic they're working on. And again, teaching them to use it themselves without intervening, without having to intervene yourself, is one of the goals. So that's how we're going to teach them executive functioning skills and get them going with that. The next one is maintain accountability. And I think that maintaining accountability is probably the hardest one. It's definitely the one that you're going to kind of keep coming back to the most. And this is going to look differently for every kid. So what I did for my thought on maintaining accountability is I decided to focus on teaching you the right questions to ask as far as when your child is working on homework or when your child comes home from school, how do we get more information out of them? Um, I know that it's very difficult to get information out of my own daughter. So I can only imagine what's going to happen when she turns into a teenager. But again, I have a little bit of experience with that as well. Um, and I think that there's a few tricks that we can use to help you get more information as a parent. I think that one of the biggest ways to do it is to talk to them right away as soon as they get home and finding out what happened right away as opposed to waiting until dinner time or until after dinner. is going to get you the most information, because quite honestly, they're going to forget quite a lot of what happened during the day, and the chance that they're going to remember the most happens right away. But these are the questions that I would focus on. I would focus on how much missing work is there really? Let them tell you, and then use your access to their school site to go on with them again and say, okay, here's what I see. You said there's not a lot of work to do. I am seeing 7 missing assignments, and one of them is an essay. I think there's actually quite a lot of missing work, and clarifying with them what those different levels of acceptability are for you versus what they believe them to be for themselves. There's often a lot of discrepancy there. And it helps you see if they're being realistic or if they're needing a little bit more training in some of that prioritization skill. The next question to ask is, when is the next test or quiz? Ideally, this is not really a question that they're going to need to think about, because if they pull out their phone, it should be programmed into their phone. And if it's not, then again, this is an opportunity for you to go back and say, your tests and quizzes need to be programmed into your phone, and you need to block an hour the night before for studying, if not a couple nights before. But that one should be a question that you can ask where they can literally pull out their phone and go, Tuesday, see? And once they do that, once you get them to the point where they can do that reliably, you have a really accountable kid. The next thing you can check to maintain accountability is, if we're looking at the quality of their work, right? They say, oh, yes, I did the rough draft. It looks really good. My essay it's on point. It's not finished, but it's really, really close. And especially for these long-term projects, ask them where they think they are, and then log in with them and go to their docs page, and you can read the doc. If you have access to their homework, you also have access to their essay. And that would allow you to see if the quality of their work is at the level it needs to be at, or if it's way behind schedule, or what is their typical standard of work, and is it matching up with what happens? The last thing is, did they hit the turn in button? And this one is interesting to me because this is the number one thing that I see from our kids. A lot of our students in our program that I work with every day do all the homework, and then they forget to hit that turn in or submit button at the end of that assignment. And so it still shows up as missing. And when the teacher goes to look for it, if it hasn't been submitted or it hasn't been turned in by hitting that button, the teacher might not even know it's there. So they might miss grading something very simple that is actually already done, but it wasn't turned in the right way. And then I like to say, one of my teachers who works with me showed me this one when I first started. She said, the 2 magic words you need to use are show me. And when you use that term, there should be some sort of a result coming out of it, right? Um, you should have the access at this point. They should have the access at this point. There should be things on their phone. There should be a paper trail, if you will. It's probably a digital paper trail, but everything on these sites is really interconnected. If you're following along with the plan that I use, everything should be on their phone as well as on their computers, the school issued computers, and you can also access it from your own personal computer, or your work computer. My daughter's Google Classroom is available to me at work, so that if I need to, I can log in and check things in the middle of the day to make sure that she's on or she's doing what she's supposed to be at school. If not, I can have a chat with her. So as far as accountability, those are my 4 questions and my one phrase that I think can help parents a lot. This one I didn't cross off. I put a circle around it. And that's because maintaining accountability, like I said, this is the one thing that doesn't go away, right? Once you get that access to their site, you don't really need to go back and do that constantly all the time every year. You might need to get it occasionally once a year if the school likes to change their passwords. But hopefully that's just kind of automatic once you get it the first time. Then the same thing with executive functioning skills. If your kid has them, your kid has them. It's just the accountability piece. Do they maintain their good calendar behaviors year over year? Or are they making use of Desmos or the stopwatch and things like that? So maintain accountability, I don't cross off. I think you're going to have to kind of keep doing that occasionally and ask a lot of questions. But our next one is modeling good homework behavior. And this is one where, again, we're going to talk a little bit about buy-in terms of this. Kids don't like homework. That's not a mystery or a great revelation, right? But the act of doing homework can be made more interesting and more entertaining if it's an interactive experience between you and the child. Um, and whatever you can do as far as making that happen is a positive thing. So one of the things that I kind of do most frequently with our kids is they come in and they don't quite know where to start or what to do. So I'm going to sit there and help them organize. Um, we have had opportunities where we have taken a kid's backpack and we've pulled a few tables together and we say, okay, I can tell that you are like a mess right now in terms of like you don't quite know where your computer is or where your folder is or where this thing is and you don't have a pencil, but I think you do. And why is your backpack so enormous? And we just dump out the backpack and put everything else back in the backpack in a nice organized way. And that often is one of the most important things we can do for a lot of our patients. Is just helping with that organization. They've never really like done that before, and they think they know where everything is, but a lot of it is a mess. Um, I also think that the second piece of this is really important is our students, the majority of them at least, have digital homework that they're turning in online. And I think that a lot of times, if you are just taking that same homework that they're struggling with doing on the computer and you print out a page, that can help a lot. And this is especially true in math, where most of the work that like goes into solving like an advanced math problem, like a multi-step problem, could and should be written down. If it's entirely online, they won't write it down. But if you give them a piece of paper, they will write it down. And submitting it is just as easy as taking out your phone, taking a picture of it, and posting the picture online. And that's kind of what we do a lot of times in the hospital as well. If they need academic help, Khan Academy on their phones. I already talked about that. YouTube also has a lot of really good free tutorial things. And then there's free tutoring opportunities all over the place. Naperville Library offers free tutoring. Bolingbrook Library offers free tutoring. There's a number of different teen centers in the area that offer free tutoring on certain days. Most schools have either a before or after school tutoring program that's free. And a lot of times that happens at lunch as well, where they have, like, especially math teachers will go and sit in the school library and students can come and spend the second half of lunch relearning how to do that math. Taking advantage of those free tutoring opportunities is huge. Um, and it's really something that you should be looking into requiring of your kids. There's also private tutors. You can definitely do that, or there's things like Mathnasium or Sylvan Learning Center. Um, but I think that one of the most powerful tools that I use with my kids, both of my kids, was um, what I used to do is just work in parallel with them. So they're sitting down with their computer doing their homework. I'm sitting right across from them, going through my personal email or paying bills or whatever, just at the kitchen table right beside them, also doing some work. And I think that that sort of makes it a more communal experience. And anything you can do to help make homework a communal experience is going to up their willingness to participate with you. My daughter now is pretty good at like having a routine around like when she comes home, she knows we're going to pull out the math right away and we're going to do our 5 problems of math. We're going to do our 20 minutes of reading and things like that. Um, but one of the things I do with her is um, she likes green tea. So I'll put a pot of green tea on and we'll sit there and we'll each have some tea and we'll talk about her day and she'll do her math homework while we're chatting a little bit. And then I can also then have her move over to our little like kitchen island thing, and I can start prepping dinner, chopping vegetables and things like that while she's finishing up some of that work. Um, or, if you have like a even just a Bluetooth speaker, sitting down and just listening to music with your child and having them suggest a few songs and you suggest a few songs, that works really well also. Just to have like a Bluetooth speaker playing some music and having it be a little bit different every day. But creating like a positive communal feel around the process of homework is definitely going to be like a really, really helpful idea. So that's maintaining accountability and modeling homework behavior that's really good, creating that really like strong environment piece, um, which is going to help a lot with buy-in and their willingness to participate with you. The last one is one where um, I think it speaks a lot towards our overachieving students, but also our underachieving kids, and that's helping them with a balanced workload. Um, and the balanced workload one is a little bit of an opinion piece on my part, but I think that one of the things that we see a lot of times in our hospital is we see children who come to us who have a schedule that is incredibly, incredibly difficult. Um, I think we're talking 6 or 7 advanced placement classes or things like that. Or we see the opposite. We see patients who come in who have art, English, and PE, and the rest of their day is based on free periods. And both of those things can be the right solution for each individual kid, depending on where they are in their continuum of education. But I think that helping them build a realistic schedule that actually works towards their strengths as a student, what they want to do after they graduate, and things like that, is something that they need a little bit of parental input in a lot of times because we don't want them to go to one extreme or the other. We see a lot of patients who come into our hospital who have workloads because of some of these schedules that are just unmanageable. Some of them have no homework and no expectations, and some of them have the expectation of 6 to 8 hours of homework a night, which is I think easily to agree that that can be unreasonable. But also balancing their workload is also about how they work on their assignments. I recommend that they start with hard work, they end with easy work. It has a tendency to make things go faster towards the end, which I think everybody kind of appreciates. If your child likes the opposite, that's definitely something that you can do to modify that. And the other piece of this is kids need breaks. I mentioned this earlier, but the their age plus 5 minutes is a good estimate for how long they can sit down at a table and work, um, and also get their best effort out of them. And so, if that means we're taking our hour of homework and breaking it into 3 20-minute segments with a 5 minute break in between each, your child's going to have much more success doing that than they are with just sitting down for an hour, start to finish, and not don't get up until you have your essay finished or whatever. They need breaks, and helping them implement that and take reasonable breaks using the stopwatch on their phone um, is certainly a piece to that puzzle. My next piece on this one is about what about college admissions? And this is one that I hear a lot of parents talk about because I did say that I think that too many honors classes and too many AP classes can definitely be a problem. Um, from the College Board website, if your child is highly ambitious and wishes to take 4 AP classes in one semester, advise him or her to slow down. The College Board is the people who actually make the AP classes. They believe that 4 AP classes in one semester is too many. And as I said before, we see an awful lot of parents who come in and an awful lot of students who come in who have 6 to 7 of them in one semester. Um, a highly competitive college is actually expecting a total of 4 to 6 AP classes, semesters of AP classes in total, not even in one semester. And the average Harvard acceptee has about 8 of these college classes. So even if you're aiming extra high Ivy League area, too many AP classes is actually going to probably do a little bit more harm than good. There's also a couple of other pieces that I sort of pulled from various websites. A few of them are from the Washington Post. Less competitive colleges, like just an average state school, is happy with 1 to 2 AP classes, would be considered a big benefit um, to their transcript. Um, College Board says that only 31% of all colleges are considering AP classes when they're looking at transcripts. Ivy League schools are not taking AP classes and transmitting them into credits. So that idea that like I'm taking my college credits now and I'm going to eventually have to take less classes in college and save some money. That is still true at a lot of colleges, but it's becoming less common because a lot of schools are going to take the lead from those Ivy League classes. Um, I found a college advisor online who says instead of AP classes, colleges are interested in part-time jobs, extracurricular activities, volunteering, and community service activities. And college admissions rates are actually going up, not down. So in 2022, the national average for college acceptance was 68% of all applications are accepted. In 2023, that number rose to 70.1%. So even at very competitive colleges, you're seeing more and more kids get accepted, in part because fewer kids are applying. But that acceptance rate for college is really going up. Um, and restrictions are becoming a little bit less. So help in creating a balanced workload can mean both helping them get more classes in and also being realistic about the amount of work that you're having your children do. The average amount of work for an AP class is that your child is, in most cases, expected to work for 1.5 hours on that class alone every single day, 5 days a week, not including class time. So, like the readings that they're having them do, the worksheets that they're having them complete, the essays they're supposed to be writing, it's supposed to be about 1.5 hours a day after school, which is over 6, 7 hours a week. That's a lot of time for one class. And if you have too many of them, that can be overwhelming for anybody, much less for a teenager. So that is my plan. I hope it makes sense. But getting that access is the first step, and that's something that you can probably do as early as tonight or tomorrow. It's just approaching your child at home and saying, "Hey, I'm interested in seeing how your Google Classroom works. Can you show me how to log in so that I can do that, and we can take a look together at it and go through it with them, see what they know, see what skills they're lacking, and how you can help teach them some things, and do it slowly over time." But doing those kind of things should help, I believe, not only in terms of compliance, but also in terms of enjoyment for both you and for your kids. And I am happy to take any questions at this time. If you want to type them in chat, I think Kelly is going to be able to read them off to me.
Yes, we did get our first one. Is it too late to try to implement this strategy with my 17-year-old junior?
Absolutely not. We see a lot of times that um, we I would say that especially this year, we're seeing more older students um, coming in to the hospital now than ever before. And it's because junior year and especially like junior, senior year, those requirements on your child become more and more intense. and the work is harder, right? You're finally getting into some of the areas where, even as a math person, I'm going to struggle with helping some of my juniors complete some of their math homework. So the content is harder, the amount of work that they're having to do is harder, and also that doesn't include things like college admissions. Um, they probably have more freedom to learn how to drive and things like that. So no, I definitely don't think it's too late at all. And also, I think it's even more important with the older kids because that's a kid who either has a job now or is eligible to have a job. They're going to need to put their work schedule into their calendar on their phone at some point. They're going to need to know how to write a professional email, right? So I think that for older kids, absolutely.
The next question was in regards to the breaks. I know you said your age plus 5 minutes is the best approach, but what is the length of a recommended break that you would suggest?
It really depends on the kid. For my daughter, I do 15 minutes. She's 10. And I think that younger kids need a little bit more time, but uh, I really think that's definitely going to depend on the maturity level of your kid. It also might depend on, honestly, like how much work there is to be done. If we're talking about, if you have 3 hours worth of homework that needs to get done, you certainly don't have time for half-hour breaks in between each of your 20-minute work segments. Um, so keeping in mind maturity level, age, how much there is to be done, I think that really varies greatly depending on who you're talking about and what the circumstances are.
Great. And if there are any other questions, I think those were the two that came in, but if there are any other questions, you guys are welcome to email them to lindenoaksmarketing@eehealth.org, and I'll make sure Bob receives those questions so we can get an answer to you. Otherwise, thank you so much. That was so wonderful, Bob. I will open up the poll.
Okay, great. While you're doing that, Kelly, I'll just put up my next slide. If you are interested in reading the Gallup Beeflation webinar report that they put out, it is a free webinar that they did. I want to say it was like late December, and it's still available on the site that's right there on your screen. There's also a book that I really like. It's written by an author named Annie Abrams, who is a English teacher who teaches a lot of AP classes, and she believes really strongly that those AP classes are really doing a disservice to people. It's definitely a different perspective than you're going to hear from schools or from a lot of teachers, and I think it's really valuable. So I would also recommend that as well as kind of our resources that we have.
Okay, great. And Kim, in answer to your question that just came through, yes, the slides and resources will be, this PowerPoint presentation will be emailed to you. Anything else? All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.